Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We are coming to you virtually from Seattle and the Pacific Northwest. In fact, we have a guest today all the way from the other side of the state in Spokane. We'll introduce him soon. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here, it's the podcast for you. I like to call it the podcast of record. This is where street smarts and book smarts collide. I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host today, we're going to have a little bit of fun talking about a new job, in air quotes, my co-host has. Co-host today is James Albertson. Hello there, James. We'll be chatting in just a minute. Our guest today is Dane Coleman. Now, Dane is in Spokane, and he started a company called Victory Media. And what they do is they help businesses stick out on social media. We want to talk about that. They help them stick out on social media and to use that platform for spreading good and positivity. Boy, we can use that, James, can't we? Good and positivity on social media. And it quickly turned into a full service agency approach using new and traditional media. Victory produces television shows and specials, full annual or campaign creative and execution, and just published its very first magazine. Victory Media recently took the silver medal for Advertising Agency of the Year in Eastern Washington. Wow, that's fantastic. And that included North Idaho as well. And they have won multiple awards for design, branding, and video production. James, we got the right guy on this podcast here to talk a little bit about advertising and social media. So Dane Coleman, welcome. We will be chatting with you in just a few minutes. Everybody else, listen, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We are on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube. James, what are we?
We are ubiquitous.
We are ubiquitous. That's become one of my very favorite words of all time. Listen, we come to you from not only Seattle, we have about a dozen other cities, including Atlanta, Boston, Charleston, Boca Raton. We've got a lot of great cities, so you can catch them as well. We happen to like ours quite a bit here in Seattle. Now, before we bring on Dane to learn more about him and his business, Victory Media, James, you have a glow about you, my friend, a glow.
That might just be the virtual background, Dan.
You might need some makeup. No, listen. Congratulations. We've talked about this. I'm going to officially call it. I know it's not ever official, but with 63% of the votes in, we're calling the Renton City Council race for James Albertson. Hoorah, hoorah. Congrats, James.
Hey, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Hey, you called it. I'm still just waiting for the official word, but things look pretty good. So
you know what? I think we're 2 weeks or a week and a half later. I think I'm not stepping out on the ledge too much to call it. Hey, listen, talk to, because I find it so interesting and having watched your journey on this, and you ran a couple years ago as well. What if there's one lesson learned from all of the work that goes into campaigning, even maybe one or two, what would you say those lessons are?
That's a great question. I think the lessons are follow your gut as to what you think needs to be done, what your message needs to be. You get a lot of stuff from the experts or what somebody says you should do or what's always been done. We say even at Sandler, if your competitor is doing it, stop doing it right away. I mean, you're just going to be sounding like the rest of the crowd. So you do have to kind of blaze your own trail in what makes sense. And that's one of the lessons. And the other one is, sometimes it's just old fashioned foot leather, as they say, for pretty much 5.5 months. I was out ringing doorbells, out talking to people, out talking to the folks in the community, and you learn a lot. They get to know you. and you can do all kind of fancy stuff, but nothing beats just plain old fashioned human contact, distance appropriately, and that
Right.
sort of thing.
Even in 113-degree weather or whatever we were in.
Yeah,
So
108. Let's not go too
108.
hyperbolic there. But you have to do what you have to do to get the job done.
Well, I can tend to be hyperbolic, so let's not overlook that. But you know what? We've got a great guest today, Dane Coleman. Dane, I want to bring you on because James running for city council, he was doing a little foot leather advertising. You, sir, are in the advertising business. We don't often hear that term anymore, really. We hear social media marketing companies and all these things, but you're in the advertising business. Dane, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about advertising in your world.
Yeah, no, thank you. Really appreciate you having me on the show. Hearing James, he's spot on. You want to be different than everybody else, and you need to be able to zig when everyone else is zagging. So not surprised you had a nice little win there. And that's what we do. We at Victory Media, we help businesses, we help individuals develop their marketing plan and strategy to help them stick out and be different from the crowd.
Yeah, that's I think everybody in marketing may tend to, I won't say everybody, yeah, a decent number of people tend to come in thinking that way, but I think pretty soon they kind of fall in line with what everybody else is doing, what's hot, what you're supposed to do. And a lot of times it doesn't stand out. So, when you kind of got started in your journey, what helped you stay the course, if you will, knowing that that's really the thing that was going to make the difference?
Yeah, with us, it was really a commitment to being adaptable and being flexible to what the marketplace is showing is going to happen. And just like that, we go into a lot of marketing meetings, and like you said, a lot of people want to look at what the competition is doing right away as like their first benchmark, or, hey, this is who we're competing against, this is what they're doing. And really that you want to compare yourself to a degree, but it is, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do? What's the purpose of your message, your business, your marketing? And there's a pathway to get there, as opposed to, like you said, just following the beaten path.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, as I talk about advertising, I don't know if you ever watched Mad Men, the stories of back in the 60s, but they were an advertising agency. Dane, is there a difference? And if so, what is the difference between advertising and marketing?
Yeah, there's a difference. I mean, I wouldn't quite say they're synonymous. Advertising is really the act of being on TV and radio and print and social media, the promotion of it. Marketing is the holistic plan. So it's more the why. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to sell widgets? Are you trying to build a brand? It really is more the encompassing vision of what you're trying to accomplish.
So when I guess kind of go back to, if you think about, when you were kind of, I don't even know how to ask the question really. I mean, when you've decided and realized, hey, you want to do this, you want to do that, what kind of pushback, I guess, have you gotten from your clients when you're trying to go a direction that it seems like nobody else is doing? How have you kind of navigated that particular minefield possibly?
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the hardest things for us to overcome when we're starting a relationship. But I think that's known, and kind of our reputation is we go in and we're able to connect both creative and new and cutting edge ways of doing it, but we still have a core of, traditional media buyers, and we still do radio, print, and all that thing. So we don't make people completely exit. Like we really are a hybrid of, there's a lot of value to traditional methods, but we generally test the water to show them, hey, here's a way we can do things, and watch the impact that this little change will have, or doing it this way will have. And it's almost always just an awe from the client. Like, wow, we're willing to take the risk because we've seen it. It's less of a risk for us. And once they've taken the risk and gotten the feedback and, generally gotten what their objectives are, it's pretty easy after that to, go out on a whim and try something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I would kind of, I don't say jump in the DeLorean and go back a little bit, but I'm curious as to how you got into this business. What was the genesis of Dane founding Victory Media? How did that happen?
Yeah, my uncle used to have an advertising agency. And so I loved what they did. I thought it was fun and it was creative. And you played with both sides of your brain. You're able to, be analytical and creative at once, which just really was appealing to me. I interned for his agency and loved it. And when they closed in 2008, I was white labeling and freelancing for a bunch of agencies as a hobby while I was working for corporate T-Mobile, and realized that I love this. Like, I would do this for free. I would wake up, and if, money wasn't an issue, this is what I would choose to do. I kind of had that epiphany, and God led me in the direction to just say, you can wake up and do what you want to do and what you're passionate about and have success.
Right. Now, and of course, in the world of marketing, like you say, advertising is one. There's a lot of different avenues to take and that sort of thing. I'm wondering, what's your favorite marketing path that you like to do for clients, or always include maybe in the plan? Typically, it's kind of like children. You're supposed to say, oh, I don't have any favorites, but you usually have a favorite child. So I'm curious, what's yours?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the creative, and the mediums can be different. It can be used on TV, radio, digital, print, but doing something that catches people's attention, doing something that makes people, you want people to look at it twice. If it's on, I say this, if people are scrolling through their Facebook, they're probably in line at Subway, they're in the restroom, like they're kind of mindlessly doing something. So you have to have a creative that really grabs someone. Like, no one goes on Facebook to see what your business is doing. That's just where they're at. So really playing with the creative, and again, that's where the zig and the zag comes in, being both native to the platform, but also different than everybody else.
As you're talking about, the measurements of this, the analytical part is, I think, how you said this. Let's say you put a project or a program into place. It would seem to me, in a world that we now live in that has instant gratification wants, there's got to be some patience involved as well. What is a normal timeline, if there is one, to see if a campaign is actually working?
Yeah, and I compare it a lot to video with the pre-production. So a lot of times there's a pre-production to the marketing campaign to really define what we want to accomplish. Because when the most common question we always get asked is, what's our return on investment? Like, that's always the first, the stereotypical, what are we going to get out of this? And it depends on what you're trying to get out of it. So there's the branding approach, there's the awareness approach, there is the straight accounting approach where you can see it on a profit and loss statement. There's the e-commerce approach. And so really defining that piece first is important, but depending on what that is, it can be very fast. Now, there's definitely, it's a slow growth. There's very rarely, 0 to 100. But we try to, in the beginning, really show what that path can be, show what that growth model can be, and what, both the investment and the return is, and correlate that with business objectives. And it's usually in that 90 days where that's kind of the crux for us. I would say, in general, where people, we really start to get gas. We start to get the data we need to make things more effective. We start to just really hit on all cylinders. But we've had some overnight things where, day 2, we're blown away with what it's done.
Oh. Well, we're going to be blown. I'm blown away already by how fast this podcast is going. We got to take a short break to pay the bills, Dane. to pay the bills. Dean, I don't know if I said that correctly, but here we go. I love live podcasts for that. We're going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsors. And when we come back with Dane Coleman for a hot or not section of the show, find out if Dane thinks if all PR is good PR. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Sandler Training specializes in ongoing training, coaching, and consulting to help companies increase their top and bottom line results. As a business owner or leader, are you completely frustrated with the lack of consistent performance from your salespeople? Concerned the team is not putting in enough new strong opportunities into the pipeline? Disappointed at your team's inability to create value instead of selling on price? Or fed up with losing valuable margin due to unnecessary price discounting? If the end result of these and other challenges is a roller coaster ride of performance, consistently missed sales forecasts, or stagnant business growth, Sandler may be a fit for you. Sandler works with sales leaders and their sales team to refine their selling process, to put key management process in place, and improve execution to create sustained improved performance and results. Check us out at www.toptier.sandler.com.
All right. Well, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business leaders in the Puget Sound and beyond. Today, our guest is Dane Coleman of Victory Media. And of course, the next segment you all have waited so long for, here it is, hot or not.
Oh, I thought there was going to be a little bit more of a pause there on in between, James, but that's okay.
I like to change it up every so often.
I like it. Hey, Dane, if you've heard our show at all, you know that this is where James and I pepper you with some questions about business, about life, about a whole bunch of things. You're going to tell us whether it's hot or not, and why or why not. And at the end, I'm afraid you want absolutely nothing. I mentioned is any PR good PR? You know, we've sometimes heard in the past the old axiom of, hey, any public relations, any PR, any news, you know, whether it's good or bad, it's good. Is that really true? Is that hot?
You know, I would have said yes a couple years ago. You know, I always felt like that was the case. I would say our polarized world and kind of we've pushed a lot of extremes. I would definitely say it is not right now. Yeah,
because you'll get canceled before you know it. So I can appreciate that answer. Okay, hot or not, Dane? I haven't seen one of these in a while, but shooting your commercial in black and white, or black or white, or black and white, whatever that is.
I think done the right way, absolutely could be hot. So cinematic can be fantastic if it's done right. But yeah, I say hot. You got to have a little bit of accent color, I think, to make something pop. But yeah, it can be done really well.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that, because I know that I love black and white photos. You know, there's really something special about those. And so I thought that's a great question, James. Listen to this, hot or not, Dane, responding to negative comments and posts on social media.
That's a good one. I would say hot for multiple reasons. I'm a huge proponent of it. I mean, one, it shows the other people out there that are reading and seeing that you care and that you're actually trying to do something. You know, fighting fire with fire is never a good idea. But I think that's a great place where people, you know, file their grievances and you're able to resolve a lot of things. And I think that generally brings on a strong public presence for sure.
Interesting. Okay, hot or not, and I'm sure you obviously had to work with and deal with this, but hot or not, creating or opening a new business in an economic downturn?
Oh, absolutely hot. Yeah. I think you have to be more selective maybe on what that's going to be, but I think now is a great time to get into a lot of things that people are going to need. There's a lot of services. If we continue to go on a negative economic trend, there's things that are going to become more important than they were. There's a lot of e-commerce options. There's a lot of ways that you can make things more effective. And I think it's absolutely a a great time to start and get out there. I don't know about maybe big retail or, some things like that, but I think there's a lot of innovation in times like this, and it's a great time to be the innovator.
So Dane, you know, you work probably with a lot of different types and styles and sizes of companies. Is there an ideal size for somebody who says, I need to get some help with this? Is there a certain number of employees, certain number of amount of revenue that they're bringing? What's your sweet spot for client size?
I wouldn't really necessarily say that there's a sweet spot, because we've worked with both the startups and the 60 and 70 year established companies. I think with us, the sweet spot is more the mindset, the mindset that you want to be different, you want to stick out, and you want to buck a status quo. And so that's really more a gauge of if it's a good fit for us to partner and work together than a P&L.
So another hot or not question, and it's kind of relevant because I've seen it here and there. I noticed when logos change, companies, sometimes people just kind of stay with it. So hot or not, changing your company logo or updating it every, I don't know, 2-3 years.
Yeah, on that, I'd say not. I think there can be major value to rebranding. And again, a lot of it's purpose and if it's done for the right reason. But I think rebranding can sometimes be done prematurely and you can ruin some equity that you've built previously with the brand. I think the one that everyone's looking at now is, even like Meta, with how Facebook has rebranded. And obviously it's been a really, really long time, and people for years will probably continue to call this platform Facebook. But their intention is to open people up to a whole new way of viewing and consuming, a social media. And so I think that it served its purpose and its objective was there. So, it's always based on circumstance, but yeah, you don't want to rebrand too much.
And can I ask a follow-up there? Because
yeah, absolutely,
it came up. So I don't know if this is really a hot or not. It's really on the front end of it, but since you brought it up, I'll say hot or not. Planning right now for marketing early on in the metaverse, once it kind of whatever the heck it is, or once it actually gets going. Is that something to think about now, or is like 2, 3, 5, 10 years?
Yeah, I think you need to have a plan. I mean, it goes very in line with like the cryptocurrency. I don't think it's going to take anything overnight. I think this is going to be a really, really long process, because you're retraining consumers on not just like how to consume a product, but how to live and change a ton of habits. And so I do think that in for a lot of reasons, it's inevitable. Just like the crypto, a year ago, we started accepting cryptocurrency at Victory. We saw that coming. We have a lot of people that work in that space here. And I mean, it hasn't been a huge thing for us. It's given us a leg up on people, because now people are looking, like, wow, this is maybe something viable that we should take. So we've in some ways become an industry leader from that, but it hasn't, it wasn't a make or break in our business, nor do I think necessarily being an early adopter in the metaverse would be.
Fair enough.
I got to believe that when in working with business owners, you'll find some misconceptions about marketing and advertising. What are one or two of the biggest misconceptions that you think are out there for the average business owner that is not in that business? What do you think some misconceptions are?
Yeah, I think a lot of times what we run into is if someone does a campaign once, or maybe tries radio or print or social media and it doesn't work, that, they make the assumption that it's never going to work, or that's just something that doesn't work in that industry or for that business. And so I always bring them back to let's figure out the objective. We'll find the best place, the best message, and the best way to deliver it. And so, a lot of times we do have people go back on something that they said they would never jump back on because it wasn't successful before. But when you have strategy and more of a plan behind it, you can change some opinions.
Hey, James, I got to follow up now.
Yeah.
Now it's my turn. I'm gonna double down because you used radio. And listen, I for years radio listener, especially for sports radio and all of that. I find myself now, go figure, a podcast listener, not only to the Shrimp Tank, but to many other genres of podcasts. And I know I'm not the only one. How has that affected radio advertising? Has it changed dramatically, or has podcasts and others just not made that big of an impact?
Oh, no, between streaming and podcasts, that's why there's been a huge transition in all traditional media. Radio in and of itself is still relevant, as is TV, but now we have these other things as media buyers to look at, the over the top streaming technologies. Podcasts are absolutely relevant. Spotify and services like that, where people are listening to their music. YouTube advertising, it's definitely made the mediaverse, if you will, more complicated and more complex. But at the end of the day, the principles of driving traffic and getting eyeballs and communicating a message is still the same. And so it just gives you more tools as an advertiser to play in that.
I would think that that there are certain ratios of how much you put here versus there. Obviously depends on maybe what it is. I'm curious specifically about the advertising, the marketing that goes on in the middle of, you're playing Words with Friends. You hit the play button and boom. I've bought a few things off of those little ads. I'll be honest. I'm wondering, when you think about the whole portfolio of a campaign marketing, how important is that for you? What have you found with that? Is that just like, just have a presence, or, hey, you know what, we can really move the needle with this sort of placement?
Yeah, well, a lot of times someone's not going in and, buying the individual, like Words with Friends. They're buying more of a demographic. So they're buying to connect with you where you're at, because you're the right customer.
Mhm.
And you just happen to be in Words with Friends, or you happen to be on Facebook. And so that's where a lot of, the data and, all some of the scary stuff with Facebook that people talk about, like you talk about something, then it shows up on your ad feed the next day.
Mhm.
It's not because they're listening. It's because they know who you are as a person. They have so many data points. And so really, as an advertiser, you're buying that potential customer, you're buying that. And then, there's a lot of algorithms and AI that puts it where it's supposed to be. So if you have a percentage of digital budget, that can be allocated where it's going to work the best. So if we're, for example, marketing a soda, and we find that, digital is converting a lot better, then we look into the digital conversion, and it will automatically say that games or apps are converting better than, let's say, Google ads. And so a lot of that is done very systematically and automatically, and put in those areas that are going to get better results.
Sounds very covert.
So James, you need to do more of that, because I never beaten you in Words with Friends. I don't think I think
you never
I'm
will.
old
Dan.
forever.
You never
What's
will.
that?
You never will.
I don't think I will. So you got to pay more attention to those ads, is what I think is going to happen. You took something right. Dane, it was funny because my question was going to be, I'm thinking about, I play golf, and I all of a sudden I'm thinking about getting some new golf shoes, and they're ubiquitous. They're on my Facebook. They're on my, they're everywhere. Amazon's sending me stuff. It's all over the place. It's amazing. I'm wondering, by the way, how much of this though is generational? Because there's been such a change technologically and digitally and what people are using. Is there a generational norm for radio works, newspaper work, social media work? Or is it more of a personality style?
I'd say it's more of a personality, and I think absolutely what people have experienced, because you talk to anyone and they have those, those crazy one-off stories, right? Where, they went into a store and they mentioned, they mentioned headphones to their wife. And then all of a sudden they're just getting ads for headphones. And so everyone has, those stories to see some of the effectiveness of digital, and or people have had a radio campaign that did really well. So they have, a notion towards a media like that. But yeah, I'd say it's more going to be experience and personality based.
All right. Well, we are now going to be commercially based. Speaking of sponsorships, we're going to take a short break to hear from our corporate sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Dane Coleman, for our famous Plead the Fifth section of the show, we are going to find out what is maybe the most bizarre project he's ever worked on. You're probably want to listen to this. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, and the Kitsap Sun newspaper. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
All right, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we talk to the best and brightest CEOs and business leaders in the Puget Sound and beyond. Our guest today is Dane Coleman of Victory Media, and the next segment is Plead the Fifth.
And plead the fifth, Dane, you get to plead the fifth, but only once. So, if James has asked you which your favorite child is, that might be the one to save the plead the fifth on. But before that, we're going to ask you some other things, and we'll see how you do. So I mentioned the most bizarre project. I've got to believe that everybody, regardless of the type of business they're in, has bizarre projects. But in the media and advertising world, you probably had a couple doozies. Without necessarily naming names unless you want to. What's the most bizarre, out of the box project that you've worked on?
Oh man, that there's been a lot of random craziness that when people find out, like, this is what I do for a living, it just doesn't register in their mind that this is a job. One thing that happened that I consider bizarre is, we have a film crew, and it's how we got into television production. But COVID happened and we had some opening, the TV stations had some openings, and they asked us if we could produce a 30-minute TV show, which we never have as an agency. None of our filmers ever have. So we had basically 10 days, and then we ended up producing 13. So we produced one every week, but it was just bizarre to, be going on as an advertising agency. Then 1 week we're knee deep in creating a TV show and all that goes in behind that. And it was shown on Fox. And so it was one of those, like, you're kind of pinching yourself, like, how did we get here? What happened?
All right. So plead the fifth, Dane. What commercial do you see or hear and it just makes you want to cringe?
Oh man, I can't.
You can plead the fifth if you want to.
I can't plead this early because I don't know where you guys are going to take it. I don't know.
It could be one of those big box advertisers or something like that. They're probably not listening to us anyway.
Hey, don't help them out. Don't.
Yeah, you can tell when they just showed up, and we call it the pan and talk, and it's, a camera on so it's not a specific commercial, but a camera on a tripod, and it's, they have a random voiceover written, and they're just like showing really random things, and, didn't put attention into it. And I always see that and just say, it's like, what a waste, what a waste of an opportunity to be creative and grab a message. So.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'm actually gonna I'll go outside and I'll even name one. I watch a lot of golf on TV, and there's one that U.S. Bank puts out there, and they have this woman who's the U.S. Bank person meeting Colin Morikawa, and she's telling them to visualize a financial plan and financial security. Oh my gosh, he's already made generational money. He, it was like, that's even hard to comprehend. There's a disconnect there. You probably see some other disconnects out there as well, right?
Yes, there's a credit union in our area that always posts like personal information about people. That's like, it's like, to our 10 members on Tinder, hope you find the right person, or where it almost seems like an invasion of privacy that every time I see it, I'm just like, it's a little, I see what they're going for, but it's, not necessarily my style.
Wow. Oh, they're going for because we're all members. You're part of the family.
Yes.
You own the credit union. So we're curious as to who you're swiping right on. We want to meet her or him or whatever. All right. So that's interesting. Let's see. What would please still plead the fifth? Well, if you had a chance to go back and talk to your 10-year-old self, what advice would you give that young Tyke?
Oh man, well, actually, I have a 10-year-old son, so I feel like I'm kind of doing that now. But it's really twofold. I would tell myself not to worry as much as I did, because I think when I was a kid, I worried about everything. I worried about what I was going to be. I worried about what grades I was going to get. Was I going to make the team? And really learning that worry is just not something that you need to have. But hard work is what pays off. So no matter what you want to do, instead of worrying about it, work for it and, find ways to work. And so, again, whenever I see my son work towards anything to get a goal as opposed to worrying, it makes me probably the most proud.
Nice. So we've been asking this shouldn't, I hopefully won't be too hard. We've been asking all of our guests this year, what, if you had to start a business different from what you're doing now, and it's based on a hobby, what would that business be? What's the hobby you would start a business on?
Ooh, I would probably say golf would be my first answer, but so many people that I know that work in golf say they don't golf anymore.
Yeah.
So, it ruins the fun. So I would say travel. I would love start a travel business, and maybe
how about a golf
business.
travel business? How about that, Dave?
That's it.
Travel to Ireland and Scotland and Australia and play golf. That would be more fun, right?
Yes.
All right.
You might have just given
You're
someone
up,
an
James.
idea, Dan. Might have just given someone an idea. Okay, let's see. What do I had a question. Oh, the question I always ask, just out of curiosity, plead the fifth, and you can still plead the fifth. What show or shows do you love to binge watch? Or have you loved to binge watch?
Yeah, I love like the Vikings, anything with Vikings. So I've binge watched the Vikings and New World. I can watch those for days.
Fair enough.
So one of our affiliate sponsors is Libro.fm, and we're working on trying to get more great books to be downloaded through Libro. So we like to ask these questions too. It doesn't have to be a business book, but it can be. But a book or two that you would recommend to anybody listening or watching to help them with either business and or life.
Oh man. I find when I'm doing best is when I'm reading and when I'm engaged. I think the Jordan Peterson 12 Rules of Life is an absolute classic and something that needs to be read. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willenick is fantastic. And, and I tell people too, every single day, read the Bible. I think that's the best book people can read in their life to get a foundation.
Good advice. So I'm going to just exit the plead the fifth and just ask a general question I didn't get a chance to ask earlier. I'm curious about your creative process. Everybody has, you talked about, hey, it's the creative aspect, no matter what avenue you take. I'm curious, how would you describe your creative process, how it is now or where it used to be, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, one thing, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make, and something that I would make, is a lot of times you talk about a creative when you're looking at spreadsheets, right? You're sitting around and you're saying, hey, we need to get more of this. So what's an idea? And so you go from an analytical mind to a creative mind. And that's the best stuff really never comes from that. The best stuff, I call it socks and scotch. At our previous office, we're trying to come up with an idea and get creative. And I flipped off my shoes and I was walking around the halls of this building, and I happened to have a bottle of scotch. So I had a solo cup full of scotch, and I'm, walking around this professional office with socks and scotch, and, just thinking and trying to open my mind. And so we talk about getting into a socks and scotch mentality where you're comfortable, you're laid back, you feel free to just throw out ideas and know that, no idea is a bad idea. And, our office, we have a little arcade in our office where we have some games where people can escape. We have some beanbag chairs. We just try to create those spaces that aren't your traditional, lowered ceiling and, overhead light type spaces, but are, can facilitate a creative mind. And the shower.
Hey, James, before you go to asking for contact information, you just made me think of a question, because I know, Dane, some of the best ideas, creative ideas I get like while I'm walking the dog. You're doing, like you said, you're kind of doing something either physical or like. Here's my only problem sometimes is I'm concerned that if I don't record my idea in like 37 seconds, it's gone away forever. And so I've started using like the notepad or the voice memo. Do you have any ideas for those of us who feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta put this down? How do you save and store some of your best ideas, maybe even at the genesis of that idea?
Yeah, I'm a big Apple ecosystem guy. We use MacBooks and iPhones and all that. So my notes is extensive. So I have creatives and ideas that go there because I know I can, cut and paste from that to my MacBook. And one little, I call it a hack, is you start looking up like theta waves, and that's, where your brain's at when you're walking the dog. When you're doing something, how to do, like take a shower or walk the dog or drive. So your body's on autopilot, your brain is in a state of theta. So even actually this morning I go on to YouTube and you can find like a theta wave music list, and it kind of puts your brain in a different spot. And so that's something that you can somewhat manufacture is the theta environment.
Wow. Just learned something today. All right. Well, before I ask for your contact information, you mentioned you're an Apple ecosystem guy. I know I would tell my 10-year-old self, buy Apple. So that's then again, you weren't around way back when. I was around when the Apple computer actually came out. But anyway, that's another story. Hey, I'm sure you've said some fantastic things and our listeners want to know how to follow up. How do they get in touch with you to get more information?
Yeah, our business website is govictory.agency, Facebook and Instagram, we're at Go Victory Media. And then me personally, I'm at Dane Coleman on most of the socials, but actually probably the best is email. So Dane@govictory.agency.
All righty. Well, hey, we want to welcome. We want to thank Dane for being our guest today. We want to thank everybody for listening in. Make sure to catch the replay. Many different ways. You can go to shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, or as Dan mentioned earlier, we're on whatever podcast you listen to, iHeart, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. We are everywhere. And also make sure to follow us on our social media pages, YouTube. Where else are we? YouTube, Facebook,
Spotify is
Instagram.
your favorite, James. Spotify is your favorite. I know that.
I honestly, I have to admit, I don't totally know how to. My Spotify is connected to my daughter's Spotify, and I'm like, look, how come I can't play this? And she's like, why do you keep starting and stopping my music? Anyway,
you're gonna have to hire her. You have to hire her to help you.
I am technically NF, but anyway, make sure to follow us on any of those: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I guess that's it. Throw it over to you, Dan.
All right. Hey, Dane, thank you very much. Enjoyed it. And maybe we'll get some golf in when I get over to the other side of the state and go play some of those great courses in Spokane. James, again, big ups. Congratulations for the big win. We're very, very proud of you. And thanks for being here today. Listen, James mentioned our Facebook page. That's, as you know, where we live stream, and we will be live streaming next Wednesday, November 17th. At noon on that page. Our guest will be Joe Morrison. Joe is the CEO, or I'm sorry, I was going to say the executive director, not the CEO, but the executive director of the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. Phil Simchich is going to be my co-host. We're going to talk about economic development heading into 2022. So please join us for that. But in the meantime, please be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.